You're online through this?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Before we begin today's program, inshallah, we wanted to start with recitation of the Holy Quran. So I would ask our dear brother Sali Yaqub to begin, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم. صدق الله العظيم.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. On behalf of the Adam Center and the Qurtuba Institute, we would like to welcome everyone to today's special program with Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah and Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and our very dear Imam Muhammad Majid. Here at Qurtuba, for those that are new to the community or perhaps have not been here before, we're very fortunate to have resident scholars in our communities, such as Imam Majid and Sheikh Abdallah, who do classes every night, along with other scholars such as Sheikh Zainab al-Wali and Hafiz Hatim Yusuf. We try to provide as often as we can through your generous donations and through all of the effort that you put forth, programs relevant to our community, such as today's program on living Islam with purpose. Inshallah, in a few weeks, we will also be hosting Dr. Jonathan A.C. Brown to be speaking about Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his new book. We'll also, inshallah ta'ala, in June, be hosting Dr. Suleiman Yang to be doing a program on the history of Muslims in America. And we have a guest scholar and speaker, inshallah, in July as well, which we'll leave for a future date to tell you about. But for tonight's program, I wanted to I know we're running a little late already, to turn the microphone over to our beloved Imam Muhammad Majid to do the introductions for both Sheikh Hamza and Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah. It was mentioned in the email, we'll take written questions only. Please feel free to move the written questions forward, and one of the volunteers, inshallah, will pick those questions up throughout the sessions, and we'll answer them afterwards.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, ni'matul muhdah, rahmatul muzdah, رحمة المهداة ونعمة المسداة ونعوذ بالله من شرور الأنفس ومن سيئات الأعمال يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا تجد له وليا مرشدا. What is a blessed day that to have someone like Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah to visit Adams again. For those who have not known that, this is the second time Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah have visited Adams Center. And he visited Adams Center when it was in 500 Grover Street. We were a small masjid at the time. But alhamdulillah, now he visited Adams the second time and he sees there's a large number of people, alhamdulillah, in a new place. But it's our blessing, it's our pleasure, it's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, to have him to visit us today, along with Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. Many of you have come here and gathered in a large number to visit Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, but now we have the fountain where Sheikh Hamza Yusuf been drinking from, which is Sheikh. And if you want to learn how to respect your teachers, you can see the model of Sheikh Hamza and Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah. I've been in company the past 3 days, in a working group, and I saw how Sheikh Hamza treated his Sheikh with great respect and admiration. And therefore, respecting the scholars, respecting the ulama, is part of this great strength of this ummah. And therefore, I don't like to come between you and the Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah and the comment and the translation of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. I just want to tell you something, that yesterday somebody did not say MashaAllah, or Sheikh Hamza translated, and Sheikh Hamza made a minor mistake in the translation. Because I said that and the brother there, the official translator, have told me, and other people have told me, that how Sheikh Hamza really eloquent translation of the eloquent Arabic. Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah speaks a very classical Arabic language, and terminology he used in fiqh and so forth. It required really for a person to know the terminology in English to match those translations. But I was very humbled, by the way, to be part of the working group that I was a convener, and Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah and Sheikh Hamza was part of it. And Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah have really influenced many people. In this few days in America, have changed many people's minds in so many ways. I'd like to introduce now Sheikh Hamza, to introduce him in a proper way. All of you know Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is the founder of the Zaytuna College. This is really a project meant to indigenize Islam in America. Already we have the first class. I was there when they inaugurated the first class of Zaytuna College. And I saw young people who are really serious, want to study Islam in American context. Some people are really, I asked a young person, he said, I could have gone to Yale or Harvard. But I chose to do this because I want to be a pioneer, to be the first person being a member of the first class of the Zaytuna College, so that Islam can be learned in American context. And therefore I'm very grateful to know Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and Imam Zayd, their effort of establishing Islam in America. And I would like to have Sheikh Hamza Yusuf to introduce Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah, and I will open the microphone.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. First of all, I want to really thank Imam Majid for the people that are part of this community. It's good to show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and shakartum la azidannakum, and one of the great blessings you have is having good leadership in the community. May Allah increase you and increase your tawfiq and the flourishment of this community here. Alhamdulillah, I have the honor of introducing Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah. Some of you already know Sheikh Abdallah to some degree. I would just say that for people that know the Mauritanian tradition, it's a tradition that has a great emphasis on memorization. Mauritanians distinguish themselves throughout the Muslim world with their phenomenal memories. Sheikh Abdallah himself spent his first really from the age of about 6 years old until he was in his 20s in an extremely rigorous study in the depths of the Mauritanian desert, mastering the classical tradition that they teach in Mauritania. He mastered he knows the 10 variants of the Quran. He learned his knowledge of the Arabic language is really encyclopedic. I mean, it's really quite phenomenal. He also spent a great deal of time mastering the traditional Arabic poetry, and he became a master of Maliki fiqh. And then when he went to the East, because he was actually the vice president of Mauritania, so he's a rare scholar in that many of our ulama have not had practical experience in political affairs, and so they will be often more idealistic than is sometimes necessary. So the Sheikh has that worldly experience which has benefited him a lot in his understanding and outlook, but he went to the East and has continued, and he's become really one of our greatest usuli scholars. He's written extensively. He has a great concern for the Muslim communities in diaspora. He has a major concern with dealing with fiqh issues that are specific to minority communities in secular lands. And he's written an entire book, and when he gave me the book, he said, I wrote this for you, in other words, for the people in the West. So even though he's in the East and he's living and a professor of, he taught tafsir for many years, he's a master of tafsir, he taught the Arabic language. He's one of the scholars that can teach pretty much all of the subjects of Islam. He has incredible mastery of the 6 books of hadith, and he actually versified a large portion of Ibn Rushd's book, The Beginning of Ijtihad, in over 30,000 lines of poetry from himself. He's also an accomplished poet. So we're just very fortunate to have him here. It's very rare to really have scholars of his caliber. He's really a scholar's scholar. Our ulama recognize his status. His house is a place of amazing evenings when scholars come from all over the world and discuss really many of the problems. He has great concern for our ummah, for its future, and also for those of us in the West. So without any more, and I had the good fortune, I've known him since 1987, some people, the more you get to know them, the more familiar you get with them. With the Sheikh, for me, it's the opposite. The more I get to know him, the more awe I have really for him.
عندك اسمعوا الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما الحمد لله على كل حال ونعوذ بالله من حال ربنا اتنا من لدنك رحمه وهب لنا من امرنا رشدا اللهم اغفر بنا وانفعنا وانفع بنا واصلح لنا واصلح بنا واصلحنا واعف عنا وعافنا.
So he began by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and praising peace on the Prophet and asking Allah to benefit us with beneficial knowledge, increases in that knowledge, to give us guidance from His presence. And we praise Allah in every condition, and we seek refuge in Allah from being of the people of the fire, from that condition.
إخواني المسلمين في هذه الديار، أخواتي المسلمات، أخي إمام محمد ماجد إخواني جميعا كل باسمه وصالح باسمه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا أتكلم معكم اليوم كأخ من إخوانكم، أحاول أن أقدم لكم بعض تجاربي في الحياة ونصائحي الكلية، ليس باعتباري أكبر منكم ولا أعلم ولا أفضل، ولكن باعتباري أني أخ لإخوانكم أتعاون معكم، أحاول أن أسدد وأقارب وأن أقدم ما يمكن أن يكون نافعا. ولهذا سيكون حديثي عن ما ينبغي أن يتحلى به المسلم في كل مكان، وبخاصة إذا كان في أرض فيها تعدد الديانات والثقافات. هذا هو موضوع حديثي، أو أحاول أن يكون موضوع حديثي، يعني في الحقيقة ما كنت فكرت في موضوع معين. سيكون حديثنا بما تيسر من هذه النصائح لأتيح لكم الفرصة، إذا رأى ذلك الإمام مالك يتيح لكم الفرصة لتسألوا تطرحوا أسئلتكم، فهذا يريحني أكثر أن أجيب على الأسئلة بدلا من أن أبتدئ بالوصايا والتوصية.
So he said that my brothers, my sisters, in general and specifically my brother Imam Majid, I'm here today and I'm going to speak to you about some of my own experiences and also perhaps some counsels that I would like to give you. And I'm not going to speak, I'm going to speak as a brother here, one of your brothers. I'm not going to speak as better than anybody here or more learned than anybody here. I want to focus on the aspect of our religion that demands that we take on the qualities, the type of qualities that are necessary in order for us to really be practicing Muslims as we should be, and especially when we're in a land that is not predominantly Muslim. It has a pluralistic element of different religions, different creeds and cultures, and so I want to speak from that perspective. And so I'm going to, that's going to be the area that I want to talk on, but I also want to leave it open, if that's all right with Imam Majid, to have some questions, because I'm actually more comfortable answering questions than I am in giving advice or speaking in this manner.
أولا الله سبحانه وتعالى خلق الخلق لعبادته، وقال سبحانه وتعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون ما أريد منهم من رزق وما أريد منهم. والله سبحانه وتعالى وضع الأرض للبشرية، فقال سبحانه وتعالى والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب الأصل والريحان، وضع لهم الأرض ليعبدوه وليشكروه سبحانه وتعالى وليتعاونوا على البر والتقوى، فقال سبحانه وتعالى وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. انطلاقا من هذا فالمسلم هو جزء من هذه المنظومة البشرية، حيثما حل وحيثما نزل فهو بأرض الله، وحيثما انتقل وتوجه فهو بين إخوانه من عباده. ولهذا جاء الحديث الذي يقول الإمام أحمد البلاد بلاد الله والعباد عباد الله، فحيثما أصبت خيرا فأعطه. انطلاقا من هذا الحديث، وهذا الحديث دائما نعتبره أساس الثقافة المسلم الذي ينتقل من أرض إلى أرض، ينظر إلى الأرض بأنها أرض الله، وينظر إلى من حوله من الخلق لأنهم عباد الله سبحانه وتعالى، فهم إخواننا جميعا، فيتصرف وكأنه في أرضه وكأنه بين إخوانه. ولهذا قال النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام: وجعلت لي الأرض مسجدا وطهورا فأيما رجل من أمتي أدركته الصلاة فليصلي. كل الأرض هي مسجد. بعض الديانات لا بد أن ترجع إلى مكان معين، إلى مكان العبادة أو أرض مقدسة للعبادة، بينما المسلم يعبد الله حيثما حل حيثما نزل الأرض في أرض الله. لأن المسلم بطبيعته هو إنسان عالمي. هذه العالمية تجعل عليه مسؤولية رسالة الأخلاق، لأن يكون حيثما نزل كالمطر ينبت الكلأ ويحيي الناس، وألا يكون كعاصفة مدمرة، فهو نسيم بارد يحيي القلوب ويريح النفوس ويحيي جميع الناس، فهو ينظر إلى الخلق بصفته رجال الله سبحانه وتعالى كما شرع في الآثار: الناس رجال الله فخير أنفعهم بالرجال. هذه النظرة الواسعة للمسلم هي التي نتحلى بها لنقدم للناس الخير، وقل للناس حسنا كما قال الله سبحانه وتعالى للناس، ما قال قل فقط المسلم، قل للناس حسنا. كل كلامك يكون حسنا، فما بالك بالألحان؟ والنبي عليه الصلاة والسلام في الحديث الآخر الذي يكتب: وخالق الناس بخلق حسن. اتق الله حيثما كنت في أي مكان، فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى معك في أي مكان. سبحانه وتعالى نسأله أن يغفر لنا خطايا نفوسنا وضرائبنا ويصلحنا وعرضنا وضرائبنا، فهو سبحانه وتعالى يعلم كل شيء وفي كل مكان. فالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: اتق الله حيثما واتبع السيئة الحسنة فتمحها وخالق الناس بخلق حسن. الناس خالق الناس قل للناس. هذه النظرة إلى الناس، إلى العالم، النظرة إلى المجتمع. إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها، ليس فقط زينة بالألوان ولكن أيضا بالحياة والأجساد. هذه الروح يجب أن نتحلى بها فعلا وعملا، بأن تكون كلمتنا طيبة، وأن يكون عملنا طيبا، وأن تكون علاقاتنا بالناس علاقات كريمة. ونحن نقدم رسالة الأخلاق، رسالة التعايش، رسالة المحبة، رسالة التواضع، لأن المؤمن حقا هو من يرى أن كل الناس يمكن أن يكونوا خيرا منه، كما قال الشاطبي رحمه الله تعالى: يعود جميع الناس مولا لأنهم على ما قضاه الله يزون أدخله، يرى نفسه بالذنب أولى لأنها على الذنب لم تشرب من الصاد والألم، فهو يعتبر الناس كلهم خيرا، يمكن أن يكون خيرا منه، لأن الناس يجرون في قضاء الله. تنظر إلى الناس وهم يتحركون في قضاء الله وقدره، فقد يكون اليوم شرا قد يكون غدا خيرا، فالتعامل بهذه الروح، بهذه بروح الإنسانية، بروح أخوته، بروح المشاركات بين الإنسانية. هذه رسالة الأخلاق. رسالة الأخلاق هي رسالة ليست فقط للآخرة وإنما للدنيا أيضا. إذا نشرنا السلام والمحبة، ماذا قال عليه الصلاة والسلام؟ أجلوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام. إفشاء السلام هو المحبة. إذا سلمت على كل أحد معناه أنك تقدم إليه رسالة المحبة. إطعام الطعام هو مساعدة الفقراء والضعاف من المجتمع. الصلاة بالليل هو علاقتك بالله سبحانه وتعالى، أن تكون ذاكرا من الله سبحانه وتعالى قائما بحقه. هذا أيضا هو البعد الآخر. أبعاد تتعلق بالناس وأبعاد تتعلق بعبادة الله سبحانه وتعالى. هذا مجمل عن الرسالة التي سأحدثها.
So he said, when we look at the human condition, the first thing that we recognize as Muslims is that Allah has created us for a devotional purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that He created the human beings in order for them to be devoted to Him, to worship Him. And then He said that the earth, also if you look at the earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the earth, according to the verse in Surah Al-Rahman, that Allah placed the earth for humanity, and then He placed in it all of these blessings that He's given us. And then He also told us that we have to cooperate with one another as a species. And so He said, cooperate in righteousness and in piety, in beautiful obedience to your Lord. And He said, this address, if you look at it, is to all of humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees the Muslims are one part of the human system, the human condition. And in the hadith that Imam Ahmad relates, he says, the Prophet ﷺ said that the lands are the lands of God. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the possessor of all the lands in the earth. And He said the servants are the servants of God, irrespective of who they are, whether they're obedient servants or disobedient, they're servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then He said, so wherever you find good, you may reside there. And so wherever the Muslim is, he understands that he's in Allah's dominion. It doesn't matter which country it is, where it is. And then he said that the Prophet ﷺ gave us something that is specific to his, this is one of the things that he was given that is specific to his tradition. And that is that the entire earth is a temple for the Muslims and a source of purification. And so the Prophet said, wherever you are, you can pray. We don't need a masjid to fulfill our rituals and rites. We can do that wherever we are in the earth. He said that when you look at this religion, what you understand is the universality of it. This is a universal tradition. And the Muslims, when they understand that they have a moral mission. There is a moral mission in the lives of Muslims. That a Muslim understands the responsibility that is related to his behavior and his activities. He said the Muslim is like rain. When the Muslim comes to a place, he comes like rain. Rain that brings beautiful foliage. It brings forth flowers and fruits and things that benefit human beings. He said that the Muslim is not like a storm that comes in and is destructive and ends up wreaking havoc on a place. So we know that the Prophet ﷺ told us that all of humanity, because the hadith says that people, human beings, are dependents on God. Whether they're aware of it or not, they're in a state of dependency. And the word is a word that the Arabs use for children, but it means dependence. So humanity is dependent on God. And then he said the best of humanity are the most beneficial to God's dependence. In other words, they're doing the work of God. They're doing the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in helping these people. So he said the Muslim is somebody who presents good in his life. He said, the Quran says, speak to people, humanity, an-nas. Speak to people in a beautiful way. He said, if this is the command for speech, then what do you think the command for actions is? Because actions are more powerful. They speak louder than words. But this is what Allah is telling us, to speak beautifully to people. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was sending a man to a place where there were a majority non-Muslims, what did he say? Be pious and beautiful to your Lord. Follow up any misdeed with a right deed to eradicate it, and treat human beings, an-nas, khalaq an-nas, with the best of character. So have the best of character, because he's an ambassador of a truth that needs to be conveyed. And then he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that He brought forth all of these embellishments in the world, the zina that is in the world, in order for us to benefit from it. He said these embellishments are not simply the embellishments of beautiful trees and fruits and the foods and these things, but also of ideas. that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that created the human being and inspired him to have beautiful thoughts and beautiful ideas that are transformative. And so he said this is the understanding is that we are presenting a moral message. We have a risala that is founded in this universal morality. If you look at he said it has to be done with real love, with sincere and genuine love for human beings. You have to want for other people what you want for yourself, and it has to be done with humility. He mentioned that you should not see other people as less than you. It's a very dangerous position. And Imam Shatibi mentions in one of his poems, he mentions that when you look at human beings and realize that they're in the decree of God, then this humbles you because you don't know what God has decreed. So he said you can see a person in evil today, but tomorrow he's in good. And so he could end up being better than you. So anybody that you see, no matter what his given specific situation is, you don't know what's going to happen. He could actually be with God and the knowledge of God, a better human being than you are, but you don't know it. And so it's very different to be arrogant very dangerous to be arrogant towards people. And then he said that this risala of akhlaq is not just about dunya. That the morality that we have and what we are taking to people is not simply a worldly message. He said it's also an otherworldly message. If you look at the hadith one of the first khutbahs that the Prophet ﷺ gave when he came to Medina, he said, Afshu salam, spread peace amongst you. He said you can only be a spreader of peace if you have love. Because desiring peace for others and saying salam to people, when you say salam alaikum, you're wanting good on another person. And he said that comes out of a goodness in your heart, to desire that. So it inculcates. And there's a hadith that said, can I tell you something, if you do it, you will love one another? And then he said, spread peace. So at the essence of this message is a message of binding hearts together. And then he said, the second thing he said was, at'imu ta'am, feed people food. And this is a message for the fortunate to the less fortunate, because not everybody can feed food. It's the fortunate that can feed the unfortunate. So this is a message of looking after those in need and going out and helping people. And it could be interpreted in many different ways, but essentially in the hierarchy of needs, food and drink is the basics. Security, food, and drink. So the first one, spread peace, is security. The second one, feed food, is on that pyramid hierarchy of needs. So spread peace, make things secure for people, and then feed people. And then, صَلُّوا بِالنَّاسِ صَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ نِيَامٌ, then pray in the night. Once you have peace, once everybody's taken care of, you can have a spiritual experience with your Lord. So have that time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order for you to have a special relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That this is very important. That cultivating your own internal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
كيف يفشي الإنسان السلام؟ كيف يشعر حوله المحبة والمودة؟ الله سبحانه وتعالى يعلمنا هذا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الله سبحانه وتعالى يعلمنا كيف نكسب مودة الآخرين، فهو يعلمنا أن نسلم على الجميع، يعلمنا أن نحب الجميع. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. يقول العلماء الذين شرحوا هذا الحديث كالنووي وهو شافعي، وكابن رجب وهو حنبلي، كالشبرخيتي وهو مالكي، كل هؤلاء يقولون إن الأخوة هي أخوة الإنسانية، أن تحب لإخوانك بالإنسانية ما تحبه لنفسك. هذه مرتبة عالية جدا، أن تحب لهم ما تحبه لنفسك. لكن الله سبحانه وتعالى يعلمنا درجة أخرى أيضا، وهي فعل التي هي أحسن، فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم، وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم. ويقول فعل التي هي أحسن السيئة. فهذه المراتب، أولا مرتبة المحبة، ثم مرتبة التعامل مع من لا يحبك، هي مرتبة أخرى. أي لا تجازي بسيئة السيئة، ولكن جازي السيئة بالحسنة. وهذه كانت صفة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، إنه لا يجازي بالسيئة السيئة، وإنما يجازي بالسيئة، يقدم الحسنة بدلا من السيئة لمن أساء عليه. الإنسان في هذه الدنيا لا بد أن يجد من يسيء إليه، أحيانا عن حق وأحيانا عن كذب، أن يتصور شيئا. المسلم عليه أن يسعى لأن يكون جزءا من المجتمع النافع، فلولا كان من القرون من قبلكم أولو بقية ينهون عن الفساد في الأرض، يتعاون مع العقلاء، مع الحكماء، مع كل من يريد الخير للمجتمع، مع من يريد إنشاء مجتمع متسامح. العالم يسير إلى مجتمع متسامح. طبعا هناك عثرات ومحوطات، كيف نتغلب عليها؟ القاعدة الفعل التي هي أحسن السيئة، يعني قدم الحسن بدلا من السيء. من أساء إليك فأحسن عليه، حينئذ ستنقلب إساءته إلى محبة. رسالة الأخلاق تجعل العالم أكثر أمنا، أكثر صلاحا. ديننا لا يأمر فقط بالكلمة الطيبة، ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة، ولكن يأمر بالكف عن كل أذى، حتى النملة. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ينهى عن قتل النمل. من ينهى عن قتل النمل كيف يقتل إنسان؟ فيقول عن نبي قتل أحرق نملا، فيقول الله سبحانه وتعالى: أقرية تسبح الله بنملة واحدة قرصته؟ فالله سبحانه وتعالى أوحى إليه يلومه على ذلك، وأن النمل هو قرية، فهذا المحافظة على البيئة باعتبار كل المخلوقات هي وما من دابة في الأرض ولا طائر يطير بجناحيه إلا هو من أمثالكم. فالنمل والنحل وكل هذه ينهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن إيذائها، عن الاعتداء عليها. فكيف يعتدي على إنسان؟ وقتل إنسان واحد بمنزلة قتل البشرية كلها. علينا أن نعلم أبناءنا هذا، وأن نعلمهم أن الإنسان لما اختلف معك في الدين أو اختلف معك في العقائد لا يجوز لك أن تؤذيه، فضلا عن أن تلحق به شيئا يمكن أن يخل بأمنه. هذه رسالة الطمأنينة، رسالة المحبة، رسالة الأخوة، رسالة التصالح، رسالة التسامح. التسامح والتصالح هي العناوين التي يجب أن نرفعها في هذه الديار وفي كل ديار العالم.
So he said, how then do we spread this peace and this love? He said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us different ways of dealing with other people and also of engendering good relations with other people. One of them is just having peace and spreading this peace to others yourself. So the greeting is from our religion. Greeting other people is a way of initiating peaceful exchanges with people. But there are some people that already have aggression. And Allah teaches us how to remove that type of aggression in their hearts. So the Quran has different verses where it tells us to actually return wrong deeds with good deeds. To repel evil with good. And he says that the Quran said, and you will see the one who has animosity will be transformed into a close friend by this activity. So this is a conscious action to remove the aggression or animosity that a person has. Another one is simply wanting for other people what you want for yourself, which includes, according to our great scholars in the hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you truly believes, it means truly believes, truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And obviously sister, but he said if you look at the great imams of even the different madhab, Imam al-Nawawi is from the Shafi'i madhab, he interpreted that to include peoples of other creeds. He said this includes Jews and Christians and polytheists. So he understood the hadith that it really is saying that you do not truly believe until you love for your fellow man what you love for yourself. And this is also the opinion of Ibn Rashid al-Hanbali from the Hanbali madhab, one of the great Hanbali scholars, and this is also from Shabrakhiti, the great Imam from the Malikis. This was his opinion also, that this was a universal injunction from the Prophet telling us that this is true Iman, that you have completed your Iman when you actually love for everybody what you have found for yourself. So this is a way to do it. So he says these are the two. You have the level of people that already you have good relations, so you maintain those good relations by being courteous, having the decorum of conviviality, and not being aggressive with people. But the second is how you operate and how you interact with people that there's animosity. And the way to do that is to win them over. And if you look, this is one of the essential qualities of the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In many descriptions in the Hilya, it said he never repaid a wrong deed with another wrong deed, but he used to forgive and overlook people. And there are many, many examples in the seerah of him doing this as an active practice, and in the end he won over his enemies. So he said that it's natural that in your life as a human being, just living on earth, you are going to be confronted with people that are aggressive. You're going to be confronted with people that do you wrong. That this is just the human condition. And he said, but then how do you interact with these people? You can get aggressive like them, and this leads to more conflict, more bloodshed, more problems, or you can try different strategies. And then he said, another thing that Allah is encouraging us to do is to seek out what the Quran calls in Hud, they're called ulu baqiyah. And this is really, I think, one of the things that Sheikh has brought out from, because it's a great lesson to see things in the Quran that are often missed by other people. But there is a verse in the Quran that says, had it only been that there were more ulu baqiyah that would prevent this corruption from spreading, that they would enjoin good and forbid wrong, then the calamities would not have occurred that occurred to these peoples. And so he said the ulu baqiyah is defined as when a civilization is on a rise, it has virtuous qualities. But when it's on its decline, it loses those virtuous qualities. Ulu baqiyah are the people that on the decline of a civilization maintain the virtues of the ascent of that civilization. And so he said every civilization has these people. You will find them here. You will find people that are disturbed by what's happening. They're disturbed by the loss of virtue and morality in society. He said, you need to find these people and make alliances with them. This is the alliance of virtue. And so he said that if you look at the world, we have the potential of moving towards a more tolerant world. Because of the nature of globalization and the interaction of human beings that has not occurred in the past in very many places. But we have this possibility. But we have to repel wrongs with rights. That's the only way we can bring this about. If we repel wrongs with more wrongs, then it leads to something else. And so he says, the Quran says, call to the way of your Lord with wisdom. This is calling with wisdom and understanding the wisdom that is needed to really be calling people. But then he said, our religion is not simply limited to a horizontal relationship with others. It includes the very environment that is sustaining us. Our Prophet ﷺ prohibited killing ants for no reason. So even the ant is a protected species in our religion. And there is a hadith, a sound hadith, in which the Prophet mentioned a prophet who was bitten by an ant, and he went and he destroyed the whole anthill. And Allah said, for the actions of one, do you take to account the whole community that does tasbih, that this community of creatures that are actually glorifying Allah? So he reprimanded this prophet for collective guilt, like having guilt by association. That's what they're doing to us now. And we're like ants, they just squash us. Like raid, rage. Yeah. La ilaha illallah. So then he said, the Quran says that there is no creature in the earth, nor winged creature flying in the air, except their communities like yourself, and to Allah you will be gathered. So Allah is reminding us that even the environment is something that we have to be concerned with. And this is part of the role of the caliphate in the world. And then he said it's important not to get caught up in these differences. People are different. They're diverse in their understandings. When you have differences of opinion, this is the human condition. You cannot take creedal differences to become sources of hatred and animosity. He said that you have to spread this message of brotherhood, this message of tolerance. You need to be able to tolerate other people, even if they differ with you in their views and attitudes. We need to spread a culture of reconciliation. These are the things that Muslims really need to be focusing on.
لهذا فعلى المسلم دائما أن يعذر غيره بأنه لا يدري، لأنه لم يطرح على نفسه سؤال ماذا، ولم يطرح على نفسه سؤال لماذا. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام لما كذبه قومه قال له البلي ملك جاءه من عند الله إن شئت أهلكته. قال اللهم اغفر لقومي فإنهم لا يعلمون. عذرهم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اغفر لقومي فإنهم لا يعلمون. فإذا وجدت من يتكلم عن الإسلام فعليك أن تقول له هذا هو ليس الإسلام الذي نحن نؤمن به. الإسلام الذي تحدث عنه ليس هو، لعلك لا تدري، لعلك تجهل. المشكلة هي من جهل شيئا عاده فيتحدث عن الإسلام من زاوية الجهل بالإسلام، لم يطرح على نفسه سؤال لماذا. فعلينا أن نحاول دائما أن نرد الناس إلى المنطق، أن لا نيأس ولا تيأسوا من روح الله، إنه لا يأس من روح الله إلا القوم الكافرون، كما قال سيدنا يعقوب عليه السلام لأبنائه اذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه ولا تيأسوا من روح الله. وكما قال سيدنا إبراهيم ومن يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون. نحن لا نقنط من رحمة الله، لا نقنط من أن الناس كما قال سبحانه وتعالى عسى الله أن يجعل بينكم وبين الذين عاديتم منهم مودة والله قدير والله غفور رحيم. حتى ربنا يطمعنا يقول الذي يعاديك اليوم يمكن أن يكون صديقا لك غدا، فلا تيأس من ذلك. وبالتالي إذا تحدث عن الإسلام نقول له عن أي إسلام تتحدث؟ الإسلام الذي نؤمن به هو إسلام تسامح، هو إسلام محبة، وإسلام إنسانية، وإسلام يصلح البشرية ولا يؤذي البشرية. إذا كنت تتحدث عن رؤية مجتزأة، أي رأيت جزءا ولم تعرف تأويله، لم تعرف سياقه، فعليك أن ترجع إلى علماء المسلمين ليقدموا لك السياق الصحيح، وليقدموا لك التفسير الصحيح والتأويل الصحيح، لأن مشكلة التأويل والتفسير مشكلة لا يتقنها إلا العلماء. ولهذا فعلى شبابنا أن يرشقوا للعلماء ليعرفوا تأويل القرآن، لأنه لا يجوز للإنسان أن يأخذ بآية مجتزأة، أن يأخذ بهذه الآية دون أن يردها إلى الآيات الأخرى، أن يأخذ بجزئيات دون ردها إلى الكليات، أو بفروع دون ردها إلى الأصول. إن من شأن ذلك أن يجعل المرء يخطئ في التأويل ويخطئ في السلوك ويخطئ في العمل. هذه مشكلة كبيرة علينا أن نواجهها لنعلم أبناء المسلمين، لنوصل إليهم في بيوتهم، لنوصل إليهم المصالح التي يعملون بها، لنوصل إليهم حتى في بيوت نومهم الحقائق الإسلامية، حتى يكونوا أكثر انفتاحا، أكثر صلاحا، أكثر تسامحا، أكثر سلاما. هذا في غاية الأهمية، وأنا أقوله لكم اليوم، وأرجوكم أن تحملوا هذه الرسالة، لأن خلاف هذه الرسالة هو تدمير وهو مخالف لدين الإسلام.
So one of the important things that as Muslims we have to ask ourselves questions. One of the things that people fail to do often is they fail to ask proper questions in their proper order. The first question you always have to ask is what? You attempt to understand something, and then you can ask why. But you can't ask why before you understand what. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he was explaining Islam to people, his people were ignorant. They had already a lot of preconceptions that made it difficult for them to understand his message. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he had an understanding of their barriers, and that enabled him to have a type of compassion when he was dealing with them. So for instance, when he was offered to destroy them, Allah sent an angel, told him, look, if you want, I'll just destroy all these people. The Prophet ﷺ said in different places, he said, Allah forgive my people because they don't know. What he meant when he was saying that they don't know is they don't know the reality of this teaching. They're ignorant of what it really is. And he said that there's a famous saying of the Arabs that somebody who is ignorant of a thing tends to have animosity towards that thing. That if you don't have an understanding of something, people tend to reject what they don't know. And so when you hear all of these negative things from people talking about Islam, what you have to remind yourself is they're not talking about Islam. They're only expressing their ignorance. And so if you react in a way where you think they're talking about Islam, you're going to do things that are problematic. What you need to show them is, look, what you're talking about is not what I am. This is my religion, and this is not what I follow. So don't put my religion in this category. What you're saying is misunderstanding. It's faulty understanding. So you need to remind people of rational processes, of thinking rationally, not thinking emotionally. And he said that if you look also, it's important for us not to lose hope and not to feel despondent about the situation, no matter how bad it would appear. Yusuf was in situations that were incredibly difficult, in the bottom of the pit, when he was in prison, all these things, but he said, don't despair from the grace of Allah. Don't despair from the grace of Allah. So So it's important to remind yourself that we're people ultimately that are optimistic. Ibrahim alayhi salam said, the only people that despair are people that are astray, they're lost. That we're not people of despair. And Allah says in an amazing verse, He said that perhaps God will take people that now you have animosity with and put between you and them love. And Allah is capable of doing that, forgiving and merciful. So Allah can take people that hate you right now, and He can make them allies and friends. Allah is capable of doing that. So you cannot despair of whatever the conditions appear, and however bad they appear. It's important not to despair. And then another thing which is very essential to our community is that we have an interpretive tradition. That religion can be very dangerous when things are decontextualized, or when you take things piecemeal. You don't see a holistic view. If you take verses out of context, if you take one verse and not understand that that verse has a semantic universe that revolves around it and needs to be understood holistically in order for you to grasp the meaning of that verse, you will come up with very dangerous conclusions. And he said that especially our youth who now have levels of literacy, they look into the books or translations, things like that, it's very dangerous for them to be reading these texts without recourse to an interpretive tradition. And the scholars, the Quran tells us, Allah says, to ask the people who know if you don't know. So it's very important to go back to that. He said it's necessary to ask scholars, and also rightly guided scholars, because we have a history of scholars that went astray. And many of the early debates were with real scholars. They knew the Quran, they knew the Hadith, but they had faulty understandings nonetheless. So he said it's important to find these trustworthy opinions, and he said to understand the realities of this religion. He said, we need to have more tolerance, more understanding. This is our message. Our message is not a message to rip apart the fabrics of societies and get people fighting one another. And he said that those who are arguing otherwise, he said these people are actually opposed to the Islamic teaching. They're actually giving faulty understandings of Islam, and it will lead to destruction. It will lead to the destruction of our homes and of our communities, and creating problems in a time that we have to be very, very careful.
رسالة الأخلاق ستجعل المجتمع أكثر رفاهية، أكثر راحة، أكثر تسامحا. ستقلل من المسجونين بالجرائم، ستجعل السجون ترتاح، ستجعل القاضي القضاة لا يجدون مشكلات كبيرة. فلهذا نحن ندعو إلى ثقافة الأخلاق، ثقافة التسامح. في التاريخ الإسلامي الخليفة الأول أبو بكر الصديق عين عمر بن الخطاب قاضيا. بعد سنة رجع إليه قال: خذ قضاءك. قال: لماذا؟ قال: لأن الناس لا يختصمون، ما وجدت أحدا، ما رفع إلي أحد، كل الناس يقومون بأداء حقوقهم وواجباتهم، لا أحد يعتدي على أحد، وبالتالي فلا توجد مشكلة حتى يتدخل فيها القضاء. إذا نحن نشرنا أن لا يعتدي أحد على أحد، أن لا يؤذي أحد على أحدا، أن لا يسرق أحد، أن لا يرتكب أحد جريمة، بذلك سنخفف على الدولة، سنخفف على المجتمع. هذه رسالتنا التي يجب أن نوصلها إلى كل مكان. لا تكون كالإعصار المدمر. مع الأسف في بعض المناطق الإسلامية يعيش الناس تدميرا، بسبب فهم مجتزئ من طرف مجموعات من الشباب، فهموا الإسلام فهما جزئيا، فهموا الإسلام تأولوا الدين على غير تأويله، ونحن رددنا عليهم هذا التأويل بنصوص الكتاب والسنة وأقوال العلماء، فدمروا فكانوا إعصارا مدمرا فكانت حروب. هذا لا يجوز. يجب علينا أن نفهم حقائق الإسلام وحقائق مصالح العباد وحقائق مآلات الأفعال والأقوال. كل تلك النظرة الواسعة إلى المصلحة إذا وجدت المصلحة وهي ما شاء الله تجعلنا نوسع أفكارنا وآفاقنا وتتسع صدورنا للخلاف.
So he said this mission, this message that we have, this moral message, is something that will also make our societies really better societies to live in. There will be more compassion socially. There will be more tranquility, quietude in the societies. And he said also even the court systems will see some relief. The judge will be able to relax and sleep better. Because he said crimes diminish in environments where this becomes normative. And he said in early Islam that this is not a fantasy, because in early Islam, Abu Bakr, when he became the caliph, he appointed Umar as a judge in Medina. A year later, Umar came and he said, "You can have this appointment back." And Abu Bakr said, "Why?" He said, "I haven't had one person come to complain about another person." Because he said they were living in a society where they actually had, it was a civil society where they could resolve their problems without recourse to a court system. So they would just resolve it amongst themselves. And he said that was because of the strong brotherhood. And so when you're in an environment where you teach these virtues and these ideals, he said people will not be aggressive against other people. They won't have that impulse to harm other people. People will be less inclined to resort to criminal activities. And this actually helps the government, because the government, one of the main concerns of the government is security. And so it actually creates a more secure environment. It relieves the government of the burdens of security and even the budgetary problems that come from creating these so-called secure societies. So he said that unfortunately we have, in some of the Muslim lands, we have youth now that are creating environments. They're like destructive storms that come in to places and they really wreak havoc. And he said that unfortunately their understanding is misguided. And he has spent a good deal of time actually writing and speaking, refuting these people from the book and the Sunnah, from our own sources and our own tradition. And he said that so it's important to put this forward so that we have societies that are more harmonious with greater security.
وباختصار المسلم هو عامل أمان وعامل استقرار وعامل توازن في المجتمعات. ليس المسلم عامل تحرير ولا عامل حرب ولا عامل تخريب. هذه الشعارات يجب أن تكون واضحة. إذا كان مسلم قد ارتكب جرما فهذا يخصه هو، لا علاقة له بالمجتمع المسلم ولا بالإسلام. وبالتالي فعلينا أن نرد الناس إلى المنطق لنقول إن هذا الاستقراء ليس صحيحا. أن تأخذ عينة شاذة لتحكم بها على مجتمع كامل هذا خطأ عقلي قبل أن يكون خطأ في الكلام، فهو خطأ عقلي. جنون البقر، جنة بقرة في بريطانيا، أن نعتبر كل البقر مجانين في العالم، هذا جنون. يعني هذا فهم خاطئ. شاب من إيرلندا ارتكب شيء نعتبر كل الإيرلنديين الذين منهم كبار مثل كندي أنهم مجرمون، هذا ليس صحيحا. المسألة هي مسألة تتعلق بأفراد لهم دوافعهم ولهم أسبابهم غير معقولة، لا معقولة. نحن نقول ذلك غير معقولة، ونحن ندين ذلك كما يدينه غيرنا. فلو ارتكب تاجلوكي أو أي من ينتمي إلى دين يجب أن لا يعمم على الديانات. نحن نطلب من الناس أن لا يعمموا على ديننا، ديننا ينبذ ذلك، ونحن علينا أن نبرهن عمليا بأننا عامل أمن وعامل طمأنينة، ولسنا عامل تخريب ولا عامل خوف ولا رعب في المجتمعات. يجب أن لا نقبل شيطنته، يجب أن لا نقبل أن يشيطننا أحد. نحن لسنا بشياطين، لسنا بملائكة أكيد، لكننا نحاول أن نكون في المثل الأعلى، أن نتشبه بالملائكة في بعض الطهر، أخلاق الطهر. هذا الذي نسعى إليه. البعد الأخير سيتكلم عنه الآن، وهو بعد عبادة الله سبحانه وتعالى.
So, in conclusion, just to summarize what I've been stating, Muslims are agents of security, stability, of well-being. They're not agents of destruction. They're not agents of, they're not subversive elements, and they're not agents of war. We're not warmongers. And he said that if a Muslim does a crime in one place, you cannot generalize the behavior of an individual or even a group within a larger group, generalize that and extrapolate out that all Muslims are like that. He said this is a flaw in inductive reasoning. It's a logical flaw. So the people are actually not reasoning correctly. We need to point that out to them because there are laws of reasoning. And this is actually breaking one of those laws. You cannot take an inductive reasoning, you reason from the particular to the universal. And so you cannot, it's a flaw to argue because one Muslim does a crime, therefore all Muslims are criminals. It's not a correct use of inductive reasoning. He said, for instance, if you have a mad cow in Britain, as he gets mad cow's disease in England, we don't now assume that all cows everywhere are mad, that they all have mad cow's disease. He said, nobody would accept that as a reasoning, and therefore you have to remind them that the same is true for people. If you have a Muslim that does something, some criminal activity in Scotland or somewhere else, you cannot universally apply that to other people, and it's important that we remind them that anybody who, in any religion, anybody that adheres to a religious tradition, if that person does something, we can't judge the religion based on the actions of people, even if they're basing their actions on misunderstandings of their religion. It's still, you cannot blame the religion if it's not the normative practice of the religion. And he said, so we have to see ourselves as agents of peace, and agents of stability, and agents of security, and not agents of destruction. He said, it's important that we have to remind people, and also for ourselves, we should not demonize others, and we should not allow others to demonize us. So it's important that we carry that message out, that it's not good to demonize people. And he said that we also have to remind ourselves and others that we're not angels, that we are flawed, and that we make our mistakes, and we do those. But as a community, our goal is to aspire to the heights of angels, that we have a celestial aspiration, and that celestial aspiration makes us people that have ideals. That even if we fall short of those ideals, we still believe in those ideals. And finally now, I would like to look at the last element here, which is the devotional component in our lives.
البعد الآخر هنا نتكلم عن العلاقة مع الإنسان. البعد الآخر هو علاقته بربنا جل وعلا. على الإنسان أن لا ينسى دائما حق الله سبحانه وتعالى، وأن يشكره ويذكره جل وعلا. اسمعوا إلى موسى عليه السلام. موسى لما أرسله الله كلمه الله تكليما، أعلمه بأنه نبي مرسل وأنه سيرسله إلى فرعون. طلب من الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يؤاشره بأخيه، فقال أخي اشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري. لماذا؟ كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. يريد أن يكون أخوه معه حتى يذكر الله، حتى يسبح الله سبحانه وتعالى، حتى يذكر الله. بعض الناس يظن أن العبادة، أن ذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى ليس ضرورة في الحياة، وذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى هو لب الدين، فعلى الإنسان أن يذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى كثيرا وأن يسبحه كثيرا. علينا أن نشيع هذه الثقافة بين المسلمين في الغرب وفي كل مكان، ثقافة الذكر، ثقافة العبادة، أن تكون لنا أوراق من الذكر. لا بد الإنسان يكون له ورد يذكر الله. هناك أوراق في الحديث: سبحان الله 33 والحمد لله 33 والله أكبر 33 بعد الصلاة. هناك بعض العلماء الذين يزيدون على هذا، وبخاصة إذا كبر الإنسان في السن، أحيانا يكون متقاعدا ليس له عمل، عليه أن يلجأ إلى الذكر. فقد جاء الحديث الصحيح الذي يرويه مسلم وغيره أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان متوجها إلى مكة، رأى جبلا اسمه جندان، يمكن إذا ذهبت إلى مكة إلى الحجاز أن تروا هذا الجبل، أنت تخرج عن الطريق بطريق خليص لتروا هذا الجبل قرب مكة. رآه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال: هذا جندان، سيروا، هذا جندان، سبق المفردون، سبق المفردون. قالوا: يا رسول الله ومن المفردون؟ يعرفون المفرد إنسان يكون على بعير، رجل واحد يمشي وحده، أو ممكن تقول في سيارة وحده وليس معه عائلة، هذا مفرد يعني بالمعنى اللغوي. الصحابة سألوا: يعني من هم هؤلاء الذين سبقوا؟ قال: الذاكرون الله كثيرا والذاكرات، الذين يذكرون الله سبحانه وتعالى كثيرا. فالإنسان، العلماء فسروا هذا، وقال في رواية قال: مهترون بذكر الله، الإنسان دائما يذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى. فسروه بأنه الإنسان قد يكبر في السن فيموت أقرانه، فيبقاهم على ذكر من الله فيسبق، بمعنى أنه يكسب أجرا عظيما كأجر كل من كانوا قد عملوا عملا طيبا، لأنه تداركه في آخر حياته. لأن الإنسان عادة ما يكون مولعا بالأشياء التي عاشها من شبابه. تجد شيخا كبيرا من أمثالي إذا كبر يتكلم دائما عن أشياء عرفها للشباب، لكن عليه أن يتكلم بذكر الله، يقول: لا إله إلا الله، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الحديث الذي يرويه الإمام أحمد: جددوا إيمانكم. قال: يا رسول الله وكيف نجدد إيماننا؟ قال: اكثروا من لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. فيكون لكل منا ولد. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم علم علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه وفاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام، علمهما إذا آويا على فراشهما أن يذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى: سبحان الله 33، الله أكبر 33، والحمد لله 33، وسبحان الله 34 إذا أويا إلى فراشهما. وقال: هذا خير لكما من خادمين، لأنهم يحتاجون إلى من يساعدون. قال: هذا أفضل لكما من يساعدون. فالإنسان إذا أراد أن ينام يذكر الله، إذا كبر في السن يكون له ورد. كان أبو هريرة له سبحة ب1000 عقدة، كانت سبحة عبارة عن عقد، هذه العقد يسبح بها 1000 يذكر الله لا إله إلا الله. هذه السبحة يعني فتجد بعض الناس يقول هذه بدعة، الذكر ليس بدعة، إذا ذكرت الله ماذا هو المطلوب؟ ذاكرون الله كثيرا والذاكرات. موسى ماذا قال لربه؟ ما أطلب هارون ليعمل معي شركة تشاءني شيء طيب، لكن لا، موسى يقول أنا أطلب هارون لنذكر الله معا كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. فذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى تكون على ذكر وعلى ذكر، أي تذكره باللسان وتذكره بالقلب. فنسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعلنا من الذاكرين الله كثيرا وذاكراته، وأن يميتنا على ذكر الله، وأن يميتنا على لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، إنه سميع الدعاء قريب مجيب. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. تكبير.
So, the final dimension, he said that the earlier dimension that we spoke about was really your horizontal relationship with others. But now the other dimension is a vertical dimension with your relationship with your Lord. And so he said that you have to give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala His due, that we were created to worship Him and be devoted to Him. And so we have to thank Allah, we have to praise Allah. We have to show our gratitude to Allah. If you look, he said, let us look at the example of Musa alayhi salam. When Musa, Allah says He spoke to Musa personally. And when Musa was told that he was a messenger, what did he ask for? He said, oh Allah, strengthen me with my brother Aaron. And then he said, and then he gave the reason, in order for us to praise you and to show and to be devoted to you and worship you together. So he said that this is what Harun wanted. He wanted help in having this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he said it's very important for people to spread this, that you have to remind people to be connected with their Lord. And that connection is a connection of devotion and ibadah. And this is why it's very important for Muslims, all Muslims, to have a portion, which is called, in the collections of the great hadith collectors, they call it a wird. A wird is something that you do on a daily basis, which is in addition to the fard that you have to do. It's extra. And he said it's very important to have some devotional practice that you add to your practice. And he said, especially as you get older. And he said, we know that the Prophet did certain things. Many hadiths indicate that he was constant in doing certain prayers and supplications and formulas, ritual formulas. And he said, like, Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. He would say these things, Subhanallah, like he would do it 33 times after his prayer. Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. That these are things that he would do, especially as a man gets older. It's very important, or a woman, as we get older, this is important because these things are needed as a type of preparation for the afterlife. And he said when the Prophet ﷺ was moving towards Mecca from Medina with his people, they were traveling and they were on camel, and some of them were riding with 2 people on the camel, and even 3 sometimes, and some were riding on their own. But he asked about certain of the companions where they were, and he said some have fallen behind and some have gone ahead. And then he said, and he was next to a mountain, which is still there. You can see this mountain on the way to Mecca from Medina or vice versa. It's called Jumdan, which in Arabic is kind of means like frozen, something that's solid, fixed. And the Prophet said, he was at that point of the mountain, and he said, Siru hala Jumdan. He said, pass this mountain. And then he said, Sabaq al-Mufarridun. The Mufarridun are outstrippers. The Sahaba knew what it meant, but they would often ask the Prophet what he meant by a word, because people use words specifically. They don't always use it with the usage that is out there. They have a specific term they're using. So they wanted to know, what do you mean by mufarridun? And he said in one riwayah, he said, those who do much dhikr from the men and the women. The people who do much dhikr from the men and the women. The mufarrid in the Arabic language literally means a single rider, a solitary rider. The mufarrid is on a camel, is a solitary rider. He could say now, the Sheikh said, you could use it for somebody in a car who's driving on his own, that he's mufarrid. So he said that in another riwayah, the Prophet ﷺ said that they're the people that are, there's different meanings of this word, but one of the meanings is the people that are addicted to the remembrance of God. And another, it means the people that start like babbling with the remembrance of God. Because it literally means when people get senile, they start saying meaningless things. So the Prophet used that word to mean that they just, it's just dhikr is what they do. Like when people get old, sometimes they just mumble. And so he said that these are people that literally, their mumbling is dhikr of Allah. That it's just something that they always do. It's become their habit. And he said that if you look at old people, when people get old, they lose their friends. Things change around them. They begin to remember the past and think about the past. And I'm just going to add something that he mentioned in Jeddah, which I think is pertinent here. One of the things that he said in Jeddah, he said that people, when they get old, they remember their past. Aristotle says old people have no future, so they talk about the past. Young people have no past, so they just talk about the future. So he said when you get old, you remember, you have recollections. He said for the mu'min, when you get older, you recollect the future. You start thinking about the akhirah. And this makes you remember Allah, not your past. He said the past is gone. It's of no use anymore other than either to be pleased with the good and to have remorse for the bad. So he said that it's important that as you get older, that you do more and more and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, renew your faith by saying La ilaha illallah. So you renew your faith. You need to renew your faith with dhikr. It's something that would increase you in dhikr. He also taught his own daughter and his son-in-law and nephew Ali, that he taught him his cousin, he taught him to do this dhikr at night when they went to bed together, to say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar 33 times. Allahu Akbar 33 times. Alhamdulillah 33 times. And then Subhanallah 34 times. So this he taught them to do that. And so he said, it's also, so what he's really emphasizing is that you do some spiritual practice, that you really take this seriously. He said the Sahaba did this. Abu Huraira had a subha of 1,000 knots in it. And he used to do La ilaha illallah and other dhikrs on this. He said some people nowadays say, oh, subha is bid'ah or something like that. He said, this is just helping you to do dhikr. Dhikr is not bid'ah. And so just don't be concern yourself with those type of things, because they're not, there's no reason behind them. And then he said when Musa, and he said it's important to do this and encourage each other. He said when Musa asked for Harun's help, he didn't say, oh Allah, give me Harun so we can start a corporation or we can start a business together. He said, the Sheikh said, look, a business is good. It's not a problem. You do your business, but that's not what the Anbiya are. That's not at the uppermost of their thoughts when they come together. And so he just wants to say in the end that may Allah make us people of His remembrance, and may He cause us to die by saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and may that dhikr be the last words we say before we leave this world.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أخيرا أوصيكم بأن تتعلموا العلم وأوصيكم بالذكر، وأريد هنا أن تعقدوا النية 1 2 3 20 أو 30 40، كل واحد يقول أنا الآن سأزيد في الذكر، سأذكر الله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير 100 مرة كل يوم. هذا لا يعجز عنه أحد. من تجاوز 60 يقول سأذكر الله 1000 مرة، لا يعجز عنه أحد. هل يمكن أن نقول إن الناس هنا الآن من الآن يقول غدا أو اليوم سأذكر الله، سأقول لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير 100 مرة، سأصلي على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولو 10 مرات، حديث الشفاعة أيضا. فأرجو أن تعقد النية على هذا، أن نزيد في الذكر من اليوم، أن نزيد في الذكر. أنا أيضا أعمل تجارة، أنا أريد أن يرد إلي من هذا الشيء عند الله سبحانه وتعالى. Sheikh Hamza.
Bismillah. So Sheikh said he wants to say finally, you have to also learn knowledge. You need to study your religion and know your religious rulings, but don't ignore the aspect of dhikr. He said, I hope everybody, I want you all to make a firm intention to do more dhikr in your lives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, do like in the morning 100 times, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahu al-mulku wa lahu al-hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. He said you could do that 100 times. I heard him do it this morning after Fajr 100 times. So he does it every morning. And he does it after Asr too. So just sit and do that. He said every day, he said, who of you is incapable of doing that? And he said, if you're over 60, do it 1,000 times. Just really do more dhikr. And he said that everybody saying yes? Yeah, because he said he's also doing some business with God. He wants some benefit from getting, if you increase your dhikr, he was the one that told you to do it, so he said, I'm doing some business deals right now as well. He said, inshallah, when we die, we will see this. Yeah, and we will all meet together and we'll remember the benefit of this. He said, may Allah give you openings, all of you, and also us.
I know the Sheikh, there's so many questions have came this way, by the way. There's so many questions have came. I don't think that I really excluded a question, because some questions are the same. If we combine the questions are the same, instead of reading the same questions. I don't think the Sheikh will have time to answer all of this question this afternoon. Because if he were to answer all of them and to elaborate on it, Sheikh might take him a week for you to answer all the questions with the man of the depth of his knowledge. Therefore, please excuse us if we don't have to answer, because we'll like Sheikh also take some rest if you couldn't answer all the questions. If you want to stand up and you do like this and sit down again, you can do that. I'll give you like 2 minutes to do this, because I know you need a lot. You are not from Mauritania. People sit for hours in their knees and they have their clothes really wear out listening to Sheikh and Nani. You are American, eating burger, halal burger, and french fries, which is not good for you.
How do I do it?
The question in English, translating the Sheikh, and the Sheikh will answer, inshallah.
Bismillah. Before I start the question, I want to say one thing about Sheikh Abdallah. Sheikh Abdallah is he's an umbrella, and he doesn't really fit into any of the categories that a lot of people like to place people. He's very close friends with many of the great scholars of this age, of different, they have different, what are called masharik, like different drinking places. But they all respect him, and we've seen this. Sheikh Abdallah, who's the Sheikh al-Azhar, has great respect. And I heard him say in a gathering that we were in with his son that he didn't feel anybody in al-Azhar right now was on the level of the Sheikh in his knowledge. And Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi also has great respect and actually asks the Sheikh for his advice on different issues. So he has he's an umbrella. He's not, you can't pigeonhole him or try to fit him or put him into any category. So I think that's just, I wanted to emphasize that. في سائل يسأل عن يعني تحير شوي بالنسبة لقصة النبي الذي أحرق قرية نمر. قال أنا ظننت أن الأنبياء معصومون، فهل هذا يمس من عصمتهم وكيف الله يوبخهم على الخطأ يعني أو
الأنبياء معصومون من ما نهى الله عنه، لكن هذا النبي ما كان نهي عن هذه المسألة، فهو قام بها قبل النهي، فأجراها الله سبحانه وتعالى حتى يكون عبرة وحتى يشد الوحي ويأمره بأن لا يفعل ذلك. قد يكون أيضا التأويل هو أنه رأى أن هذا النبي يؤذي الناس فهو ظن ذلك. يعني أنا وقع لي، كنت حاجا قبل فترة من الزمن والناموس أخذ مني وأنا محرم، فقلت دون انتباه وقلت وأطلقوا عليه شيء اسمه هذا في توكس هذا، ثم بعد ذلك انتبهت، قلت لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله، قتلت الناموس في مكة، هذا لا يجوز، وأخرجت فدية بعد ذلك. فطبعا على مذهبي، على المذاهب الأخرى يجوز قتل ما يؤذي، لكن مثل مالك ذات شديد في هذا، لا يقتل إلا تلك الأشياء السبعة التي يعني الأشياء المنصوص عليها. فأنا أعتقد أن النبي جواب أنه فعل ذلك قبل النهي باختصار، هذا الذي أراه والله أعلم. والسؤال المحل.
He said it's a good question, and your understanding is accurate on the inviolability of the prophets. They don't make mistakes. They're impeccable in what Allah has prohibited. But that does not mean that they can't make things, mistakes that don't relate to any sinfulness. And he said also another aspect of this could be that the Prophet who did that actually thought, this ant harmed me and maybe those other ants will harm other people. So it was a type of preemptive strike to stop harm from coming to other people, but it became an opportunity for revelation to come so that we could learn from that. So the Prophet sometimes do things that are not sinful, like when the Prophet frowned at the man who was bothering him, it wasn't a sinful act, but it became an opportunity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach all of us. So the Prophets will sometimes do things that become teaching opportunities, and so that's what happened. He said it was a good question, and he said, as an example in his own personal life, he was on Hajj and he got bit by a mosquito and he killed it, and then he realized, oh, I'm in Mecca, and he said, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And he actually paid the expiation for it, fidya, because even though the other madhabs are more lenient on what are called the things that harm you, like mosquitoes or bees or something, but he said in Maliki madhab there's only 7 that are mentioned, and that's not one of them. So because he was trained in a Maliki school that he followed that. He said that, it's a little stricter on that, on the Hajj. So that's an example of just doing something as a result of it harmed me, so I want to retaliate. It's a human thing to do. It's also one of the wisdoms of Mecca is to teach you so that you can apply them in other places as well as a practice. هذا سائل يسأل يعني هل هناك علاقة في المنتدى في ماردين أجريته وكتاب أنت ذكرته في الجزيرة المسلمون تحت غير المسلمين؟
هو كلها محاولة كل يعني بالنسبة للمادين وبالنسبة لكتاب صناعة الإخوة والتلقائيات والمسلمون في ديار غير المسلمين تحت حكم غير المسلمين، هو كلها محاولة لقراءة العصر الذي نعيش فيه، محاولة لقراءة العصر الذي نعيش فيه وكيف يكون وضع المسلم في هذا العصر، كيف يزيد الراحة في هذا العصر حتى لا يكون دائما يشعر بأنه في ضيق ولأنه يعني شخص منعزل عن الناس. فنحن نبحث هذا الفقه، فما كان في المادين هو بحث معمق في قضايا خاصة، قضية الدار، قضية الولاء والبراء، قضية أيضا الجهاد، في قضايا خاصة. كان بحثا فقهيا معمقا جمعنا له مجموعة من العلماء وأصدرنا فيه فتوى مادية، يعني قياسا على فتوى شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية قبل 7 قرون.
What was the question?
Yeah, I'm going to I'll repeat the question. السؤال معاد في الجواب. So I'll repeat it. The Sheikh said that somebody asked, is there a link between the Mardin conference and the book you mentioned on Al Jazeera, Muslims on Anonymous Rule? And he said that the Mardin conference was an attempt to read the time that we're living in. That this is a different time, and there are many issues that are confronting us as Muslims that were not really in the former times. And so he brought together a group of scholars to really look at this. Because what he's exploring is how we understand Muslims in the current context, that given the current context, we have to find ways of being in the world in ways that Muslims can feel more comfortable, because there's a lot of constriction for Muslims. They're not used to the circumstances that they find themselves in, and so he said, we're trying to read better and explore our own tradition and look for solutions from within our tradition of how we can become more at peace given the current configurations that are very difficult for many Muslims. And so this was a detailed attempt. We wanted to look with more profundity at 3 problems in Mardin. And so the Sheikh brought many scholars from many different viewpoints together to look at a fatwa of Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, which is a famous fatwa about people living under non-Muslim rule, Muslims under non-Muslim rule, which relates to that book also that he mentioned on Al Jazeera that deals with that problem. And he said, so they were examining the aspect of the abode, what's called a dar, and what that means. Because dar, the Sheikh said that the abode, defining abodes is more of a descriptive term in Islamic jurisprudence than it is prescriptive. In other words, the ulama in the past looked at Dar al-Islam, Dar al-Harb, and then Dar al-Sulh, that you had like covenant with people, where there was an exchange of ambassadors, and then other people, it was just the abode of war. And then you had the abode of peace, which was where the Muslims ruled. He said that is descriptive. And this idea of splitting the world into these abodes in today's world becomes very problematic, because you're living in secularized societies where Muslims are part of the society. They're not considered a minority. They're enfranchised citizens. They can vote and they have rights, and they can actually become a majority eventually. It's all possible. So he said that this is an attempt to deal with the problem of the abode, and then to deal with the problem of what's known as al-wala wal-bara. And al-wala wal-bara is the idea of loyalty only to God and His Messenger, and disavowal of any loyalty to other than God and His Messenger. And he said, unfortunately, this is a misunderstood term. And so it was to address the problems of that misunderstanding. It comes from the idea, there are Muslims who say that you can't have anything to do with a non-Muslim society or government and things like this. And he showed from the original sources and from our tradition that these are actually misunderstandings that have arisen. And finally, the third problem that they were dealing with was the idea of jihad and what that means. A comprehensive understanding of jihad, because jihad is not an easy understanding. There's a 9-year-old who asked the question, لماذا نقرأ القرآن?
ولقد يسرنا القرآن بالذكر فاقرأوا ما تيسر منه، اقرأوا ما تيسر من القرآن. الله سبحانه وتعالى يأمرنا بقراءة القرآن، وأن نتلو القرآن فمن اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه. فقراءة القرآن فيها تعلم أحكام الله، أوامره ونواهيه، فيها تصفية للقلوب، فيها أجر، لأن كل حرف من القرآن ب10 حسنات كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. فنحن نقرأ القرآن بكل ذلك، نقرأ القرآن لنفهمه، لنتعلم منه، نقرأ القرآن لنكسب أجرا عند الله سبحانه وتعالى. فالقرآن فيه أسرار كثيرة وعلوم غزيرة قد لا يطلع عليها كثير من الناس، لكن من يريد أن يقرأ القرآن عليه يتعلم على شيخ، عليه يتعلم على من يقوده، على من يعلمه، على من يفهمه. فهو قد لا يفهم بنفسه وقد يخطئ في الفهم، ولهذا علينا دائما أن نتعلم على المشايخ، على من يقودنا، على من يساعدنا، عن من يفهمنا اللغة العربية التي بها نزل القرآن الكريم. فنقرأ القرآن بكل هذه ولبركة القرآن الكريم.
And so the question was about why we read the Quran. The Prophet, the book of the Prophet ﷺ is read for many reasons. That Allah sent this book for us to learn. So we read the Quran to actually learn the rulings and how to behave in the world. And then we also read it as a way of bringing tranquility to our hearts. So it's actually in the troubledness and the disquietude of the world, the Quran is a refuge for the heart, and you can find peace and contentment from reading it. And then we also read it for reward, because the Prophet ﷺ said every letter of the Quran has 10-fold reward. So when you read it, you get great rewards. And he said, and then also, people forget this, there are profound secrets in the Quran that are unveiled over time and great deliberation. And there are great knowledges in the Quran, and some have yet to be discovered. So the Quran is read for all these reasons. And he said, but it's very important that you have a teacher. You really have to have somebody who knows the Arabic language, somebody who knows the necessary sciences that are needed to understand the Quran correctly. Because a lot of people can have grave misunderstandings that lead to real problems. And so the Arabic language is a prerequisite. The Arabic language takes a lot of time to master. And he said, and ultimately there is a great barakah, or grace and blessing, that is found in the Quran. هذا في سؤال عن يعني انه يذكروا انا شاركت في مؤتمر عن يعني سلمنا الله جميعا عن هذه الافلام الخليعه التي الان تبث في كل مكان، وعندنا مشكله هنا في هذا المجتمع وفي غيره. فهذا السائل يقول انا للاسف اعترف بانني مبتلى بهذا الشيء، وانا اعلم ان هناك مبتلين بهذا الشيء بين المسلمين، وقال أن هذا الآن يهدد يعني زواجي ويهدد علاقتي مع أهلي، وأنا أرجو من القادة ومن قادة المسلمين أنهم يفهموا أن هذه فعلا مشكلة عويصة، وأنا أريد هل تعرفوا خطوات عملية من وجهة نظركم ممكن أخذها حتى أغلب على نفسي في هذه الدائرة المدمرة في حياتي، وهو يقول والسلام من نفس المريضة، ويعني يوقع هذا.
الله المستعان. واستعينوا أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة وإنها لكبيرة على الخاشعين. الصبر والصلاة، الله سبحانه وتعالى يقول واستعينوا بالصبر والصلاة. الصبر هو العزيمة، أن يكون الإنسان ذا عزيمة يصبر عما يشتهي ويصبر على ما لا يحبه. فالصبر صبران: صبر عن الشهوات وصبر على الطاعة. فيكون هذه العزيمة على الصبر على الإنسان أن ينوي وأن يستعين بالصلاة. الصلاة كما تعرفونها عبادة لا تذكر، والصلاة الدعاء. يقول اللهم اهدني، اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك، اللهم أعني على نفسي، الله المستعان. استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة. هذه هي الوصية الأولى. الوصية الثانية هي الابتعاد عن هذه الأماكن، عن قرناء السوء، عن هذه الأماكن. يبتعد الإنسان عن المكان الذي تعود به هذا، يخرج من هذا المكان جهدا حتى يتحول إلى مكان آخر. فعده بتحوله إلى مكان آخر. الوصية الثالثة أن يكون له قرناء خير، أن يصحب أناس يعينونه على الخير، أن يصحب قرين خير، فهذا يعينه على ذلك. الوصية الأخيرة يقول سبحان الملك القدوس الخلاق على صدره، لعل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجب عنه ما كان يسألك القدوس خلاق الأحلام ومعوذات وكل مستعين.
ونحن ندعو له ان شاء الله نكون جميعا ان الله سبحانه وتعالى يعافي كل مبتلى. اللهم عافي كل مبتلى.
Amen. So this question was just mentioned that they were aware of my participation. It's directed to both of us. كذلك طلب مني بعد ذلك So he just said that there was a conference that the Witherspoon Institute did on the social cost of pornography, and he said, unfortunately, I have to admit that I have an attraction to this, and it's causing strife in my marriage and my relationship with Allah, and that I hope the religious leaders will do more to do this, to deal with this problem. But he wants some practical steps on how to deal with this, and he signed it, diseased soul. The Sheikh said that the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, seek help, isti'ana, from patience and prayer. That this is something that is a force that the Muslim can use in his struggles against anything in the world. And he said patience is determination, it's azima. That patience is determination, and it involves two aspects. One is being patient by avoiding those things that are harmful for you, or that your nafs desires that are not good for you. But the other one is being patient in your resoluteness in being in a state of obedience to Allah. So it's patience in avoiding wrong actions, and patience in your resoluteness to maintain your obedience to Allah. And he said the prayer, the second part of that, telling us to seek help from patience and prayer. Prayer, he said, is dua. I mean, as-salat means dua in Arabic. And so he said that there are du'as the Prophet gave us. One of them is ihdini, guide me, ihdina siratal mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, to really ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide you. And then, oh Allah, help me to fulfill this remembrance of you. Make firm my heart. Many, many du'as. And he said, so that's my first counsel about this. My second one is to avoid peoples and places that are associated with these things. So if you have any people that you know that are also involved in things like this, just avoid those people. But then avoid the places where these things can affect you. There are hotels, and I know from the conference that they call it one of the main reasons why people get involved in pornography, and it is addictive. I mean, we had experts on neurology that showed that there are certain people, especially within the males, that there are certain people that will become addicted to it if they expose themselves to it. That was very clear in this conference. And it's a major problem globally. It's a problem in the Muslim world also. And the reason that I got interested in the problem was because a Muslim came to me with Google statistics that some of the Muslim countries have the highest searches for pornographic material, which was very shocking to me, but I mean, it is a real problem. And then he said that so avoid places, and this also involves the internet, because that obviously is a problem. Put the internet in a public place in your house. That's the only place, in my house there's a computer, it's in one place where everybody can see. So that you can't have it facing, the screen facing the place where people walk by. And then he said, also have good company. It's very important to have good company, people that remind you and that can help you in your resolve. And then he said, the fourth is a dhikr that you can do. Put your hand over your heart. Subhan al-Malik al-Quddus al-Khallaq al-Fa'al. And do that dhikr. 7 times. So he said, do that when you have any problems, feel that urge or something like that. Just do that. And then he said finally that I'll pray for you and everybody else, that we should pray for our Muslims that are in these tribulations. The final thing that I would add to that, this is a problem that we have to address as a community, because it's a real problem. When we did the conference in Toronto, I had several women come up to me after the talk I did with Pamela Paul, who did a lot of the original research. She wrote a book called Pornified. Chris Hedges is also somebody that I've done things with that's very concerned with this problem. Roger Scruton, Robert George. There are many Christians in this country also that are deeply disturbed by this problem. Okay. There's a lot of questions here. What I can say is, inshallah, أنا الذي أقترح شيء أنه نكتب هذه الأسئلة ويعني شيخنا بجدة أو نقابلك ونحن نحط الأجوبة على الإنترنت. ما رأيك؟ نعم سنكون تواصل.
يكون بين تواصل يعني مستقبلا شوية نظري.
Unfortunately, the time is closing. There are a lot of questions. We have just an incredible treasure, inexhaustible in many ways, and really, I always benefit. This is the thing that I really love, is when he answers questions, because he gives such extraordinary solutions. But what we'll try to do is take all of these, get them typed up, translated into Arabic, and then we'll have Sheikh Abdallah answer the questions, and we'll put them on some different websites. One of the websites is Bin Bayyah, Sheikhna, binbayyah.org.net. How do you spell it? B-I-N? B-A-Y-Y-A-H. So if you go to bayyah.net, and also Sheikhna, the women's website that has the women's website from your family that has things of the Sheikh. Oh, okay, it's on bayyah.net also. Nah. So, and then also the Zaytuna website and sandala.org, .com, sorry, S-A-N-D-A-L-A, Cordoba Institute. Inshallah, we'll have these on there. Maybe do some Twittering and Twittering or something like that. So we have our own Facebook revolution. So, inshallah. So, apologies not being able to get to these, but we will really try to do that. Yeah. So.
لله رب العالمين اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك اللهم يا ربنا كما جمعتنا هنا ويسرت لنا دعاءك بفضلك ويسرت لنا رجاءك بلطفك وكرمك فلولا فضلك ما دعوناك ولولا رحمتك ما رجوناك فنسألك يا الله يا أرحم الراحمين يا رحمن يا رحيم يا حليم يا كريم أن تفتح لنا بفتوحاتك الربانية وأن تغفر ذنوبنا وتصلح شؤوننا وتزيدنا سترا في الدنيا والآخرة يا أرحم الراحمين لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم سبحان الله رب العرش العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي بالإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسولك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا أتم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير اللهم افتح لنا بفتوحاتك اللهم اغفر لنا اللهم اعف عنا وعافنا اللهم أحيي قلوبنا بأنوار معرفتك واغفر ذنوبنا بمحض المغفرة واصلح شؤوننا يا حي يا قيوم واحسن عاقبتنا يا من له عاقبة الأمور وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
Takbir. Takbir. I'd like to thank Sheikh Abdallah Bin Bayyah and Sheikh Hamza Yusuf for coming to Adams, and I'd like to thank October Institute, our brothers and sisters who did a great job with organizing this. Jazakumullah khair wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.